Good morning, it's Graham again from Unearthed, and it is the weekly episode of Detecting Talk. I think we're on number 566 currently. Now, some of you guys that tuned in last week, I'm just going to move this back because I can only see, not that I want to look at myself, but I can only see the bottom half of my head. That's better. Some of you guys that tuned in last week would have remembered that I was talking about permission, and I got a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback off that video, of that short film, which is good news. I mean, it's reached out to people, and I think a lot of people are sort of taking it on board, especially the new people that are coming into the hobby, which is what these videos are really aimed at. I mean, you guys out there that have been doing it as long as me probably roll your eyes and think, oh well, we already know that. So I can understand that. So I mean, it's not aimed at you guys necessarily. It's more to give advice to the people that are coming into the hobby, that really don't understand how it works and how it all fits in and all pieces together. So moving on from last week's episode when we talked about permission, you finally got your beloved permission, the bit of permission that you've been after for 4 or 5 months, longer. It's finally happened. You've got your permission. Next, what do we do now? You believe it or not, a lot of people will get permission off a farm, smallish farm, 300 acres, 200 acres, 100 acres or less, and they go home and it's all fantastic stuff. They can't wait to get out on it. However, if they can't get out for a week or so for the weather or commitments or whatever, one or two people become a little bit apprehensive. They start thinking as they're driving to the farm or their permission, oh, I hope he doesn't say, I've had a second thought on this. On second thoughts, you can't come on. And sometimes that happens, believe it or not. It happened to me not so long ago, where we got granted some permission and then they give us backword on it. But I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, just go and present yourself like you presented yourself when you asked for permission in the first place. Happy days, you'll get on. Just be honest with the guy, the farmer or the landowner or whoever it is, even the farmer's wife. They're powerful people in their own rights, and they can grant permission and take permission away just as much as the farmer can. So don't be worried too much about going to the farm once you've already got permission to start detecting. But there is ways and means of making the situation so much better, so much easier. And the one thing I would say, if you guys are out there watching this, and there's any little bit of advice I can give you on this video, is this. Some farmers get a little bit prickly, some landowners get a little bit prickly about detectors turning up at the door with all the gear on, detector over the shoulder, and a gigantic spareless shovel. A huge 50-60 inch stainless shovel. Because the first thing they think is, are they going to be digging with that on my land? So what I do, and I always do this, is say to the farmer, especially if it's arable land, where you're going to be hoovering up everything in the first 3 to 6 inches anyway, use a long stainless trowel, one that you can fit in your pocket, or in your belt, or in your harness, rather than taking these giant shovels. Because believe it or not, it puts farmers and landowners off when they see you turning up with that giant shovel. You're dragging it out of the boot. Everything else is fine, your detector, your gear. But as soon as they see them shovels, they start thinking, oh God, he's going to make a mess. So what I do is I speak to the landowner in depth and say, listen, this is what we use. I show him. And I'm going to say to him, if I've got a spade on me, which I always carry a spade on me with me anyway, just in case I'm on pasture where trowels are not good enough to get in. But I always show him the tools I'm going to use to dig. And I always say to him, we don't make a mess. The holes are neatly made, little plug, everything, all the soil goes back in. Within a day or two, you'll never be able to see me where I've been, or footprints or whatever, or soil. If you dig a hole on pasture and there's soil around the hole after you've put it back in and stamped it down, it looks a little bit untidy, I agree in parts, but a day's rain or a night's rain washes that away anyway and it's back to normal. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but I always show the farmer what I dig with. Now, some of you guys out there think, what's he on about? Why would he do that? But that's what I do. So always show the farmer that you're not going to be digging massive holes on their land with these huge shit shovels. Them huge shovels, I use one on pasture, but on plough, nice flat plough where you're only really hitting stuff between the first 2 or 6 inches, maybe a little bit deeper in parts. A stainless shovel on arable, beautiful soil, Norfolk soil, Lincolnshire soil, Yorkshire soil, East Yorkshire soil, all that kind of stuff. The trail's perfect. The trail's perfect unless you start hitting deeper targets, and then it becomes a bit of an issue. But if you've got the energy to walk around the field for 7 or 8 hours swinging a detector, you've also got the energy to dig out a deep target with a decent sized stainless trowel. I'm convinced of that. So that's a little bit of advice I can give you, is just be careful that some of these farmers do not like big spades. I can remember going to a farm in Norfolk once. It was a brilliant farm. I found loads of nice things on it, but he'd only ever let us use trowels because he didn't like big shovels. He was worried about them. So that's one thing to be aware of. You know, some of you guys out there will be thinking, well, I use a giant spade, I don't make a mess. And I understand that, and I do myself. I have a trowel, and when necessary I have my spade over my shoulder on a sling. But of course on pasture I do, but I don't think it's needed that much on these arable sites. I really don't. I think these big strong trowels, big stainless steel trowels that you can get, are perfect for the job. So that's one starting tip or hint that I can give you guys when you're starting off. Also, and this annoys me a little bit, when you get permission on a new farm and it's 300 acres, 200 acres, it's a relatively large farm with 15 fields, say. You don't know where the goodies are hiding on that particular farm. So what people have a tendency to do is field hop. We'll get onto one field, within the first hour nothing comes to light, so they're jumping over the hedge into the next one. Nothing comes to light by dinner time, they're in the third one. By mid-afternoon they're in the fourth field. By late afternoon, heading towards tea time, they've done 7 fields. Not found a great deal. Now, okay, they're looking for hot spots, but they're also field hopping. They're moving around too much. They're not giving these fields time. If you've got plenty of time on your hands and you've got weeks and weeks ahead of you to detect on this particular farm, just do one field at a time. It's a marathon detecting, not a sprint. People have a tendency to rush around all over these big, large areas in these fields and just field hop all over the place. I see them all the time. I've been detecting with guys like that. And then they wonder why they missed the first couple of hammered coins at the first field they went in. It's because they didn't give it time. You've got to give it time, and also keep your eyes peeled. If you're on arable, any signs of pottery on the first couple of fields that you're detecting on is a good sign. Medieval pottery, green glaze, that kind of stuff. Clay pipe stems, you know there's been habitation, you know there's been stuff going on in them fields. The finds won't be far away. So what my advice is here, stick to the fields that you go on first. Spend time on them, don't dismiss them. There's far too many detectorists out there jumping from field to field to field. Within a month they're writing the farm off and they're moving to the farm 200 or 300 yards away, or more I should say, a couple of miles down the road even, and getting permission on that one and doing exactly the same as that. And then lo and behold, if they've got the gift to gaining permission like some of these guys have. I mean, for example, we have one guy up here in Cumbria that's got masses of land. He's been detecting 3 or 4 years. Masses of land. He's not happy with just having 3,000 or 4,000 acres. Not hundreds, thousands of acres. But he's all over the place. He will not stick religiously to one area and do it properly. Crazy. Just stick. You've got all the time in the world. If you don't find anything on the first day, don't have it, don't see that as a failure. It's just that particular field's relatively quiet. And of course, you've also got to remember, the first few fields that you go on that have been ploughed, nice and flat, not finding a great deal. The next time that farmer ploughs that the year after, it could bring a whole new batch of finds to the surface. So my advice is never write a field off. I have done it myself. I had a field that produced very little for a long time. It should have been there, all the signs were there. It was near the village. There was a ruined windmill in the corner of the field at the bottom. lovely and flat, perfect soil. The ancient people must have been on here using that soil to grow the crops. It was that good. First 3 or 4 outings, which would have, the first year we probably did two trips on it. The second year we probably did a trip on it and come off. The third year we probably did the same. Nothing came off in 3 years. So that was what, 1, 2, 4 days wasted. Or was it wasted? You've got to ask yourself, was it wasted? You put the effort in and the hours in, but nothing came to light. However, the 6th year, 5th to 6th year, we ploughed it deep for sugar beet. I had 600. 600 in one day. And a load of artifacts broken and full. So you can never dismiss a field. Never dismiss a field. And that field has gone quiet again. But we're predicting that, the turn of the plough, the cycle of the plough every 6 or 7 years, it seems to bring up the stuff. And we'll have another good do on it maybe next year or this year. So my advice is never dismiss a field totally. I'm a great believer if it's in the right area, there's historical links to that particular village or that area, at some point something decent will come off that field. Just spend the time detecting on it, doing your own thing, and the finds will come. So, we talked about gaining permission last week. We're talking about this week, keeping hold of your permission and doing it correctly. There's too many people, I think, out there going and tying all these farms up and not detecting them correctly and dismissing them. That's a lot of rubbish. I mean, we had a particular field in Lincolnshire, of all places, because we do a lot of travelling in different areas, and the farmer said, you won't find a great deal on here, guys, because we've had detectorists on it for the last decade. But it was in such a good area. There's got to have been stuff on it. We went on, we started finding bits and pieces. The farmer, we went back to the farmhouse to show him the finds and share the finds with him. The farmer said, well, yeah, then they spent a lot of time on that field, but I did see them from time to time just wandering around on every single field around the farm. They didn't seem to stick to one particular area. I said, well, the reason is because they've not done it correctly and they've missed all this. And every year since we've been back on that farm, we've produced some nice hammered coins and medieval artefacts and the odd Roman bit. So these guys have been on, hasn't been good enough for them, they've been too impatient and they've moved off. They've missed out. They missed out on some nice short cross and other bits and pieces like that. So if that's any advice I can give you. I don't want to sound patronising to people, but I'm telling you as it is from my experience. And in life I've been doing it for 38 years, as you guys know. I keep harping on about that, but I've made a lot of mistakes to get where I am, and I don't necessarily want you guys to make the same mistakes. It's almost like fast tracking and getting rid of all the mistakes I've made to get you guys to be successful detectorists. And a lot of people that watch these videos are already successful detectorists. They don't need my advice, but it's to the ones that are coming into the hobby that really don't know where to start and how to do it correctly and how to go about doing their job as a detectorist. So if that's any advice I can give you, stick to a farm, don't dismiss it, and don't write it off. Write it off at your peril if it's in a good area. There's so many people now wanting a quick fix at detecting. That's very, very frustrating for me, but it must be also frustrating for them. Got me permission today when it was absolutely rubbish. Crap farm, I'm off to find another one. There could be anything lying on that farm, you've just not walked over it, or your search coil hasn't swung over the finds. Just take it nice and easy. Don't rush around like a busy bee on these fields, field hopping from one to the other and dismissing it. So I hope that helps. It is difficult, and I know it's difficult, and I know it's frustrating. You guys are looking on social media, seeing all these wonderful finds coming to light, and you want some of that yourselves. And if it's not happening quick enough, you start losing heart. But believe me, I have had so many blank days in the field, it's unbelievable. Wet through, mud up to the eyeballs. Melanie says I look like something out of the jungle. Some sort of Stig of the Dump sort of character living in the woods when I come back home. Sometimes I've got mud all over my face, all over my hands, all over the place, and found very little for it. But that next week, the week after, you could go out, you can have a completely different experience. People only see the good side of your finds. We don't really talk about the bad days in the field. I've had some horrendous days in the field where I'm detecting with 3 or 4 guys and they're all finding wonderful things, and I'm using almost the same detector as them, or if not the same detector, finding nothing. If it's not your day, it's not your day. And every dog has its day, because eventually you'll hit that stuff the same as what they'll do, they've been doing. So So that's more, hopefully more advice for you guys to get your head around coming into the hobby. I hope that helps. But just remember, don't start flashing around these giant spades on some of these farms. They don't like it. They do not like it. Always show them what you use as a digging tool if they don't already ask. Don't field hop. Stick to a farm, don't dismiss it. You know, give it a year, give it a couple of years. If it's absolutely devoid of anything, then you can say, well, you know, I've give this farm a good going over. It isn't producing the goods, and then you think about moving on. So you can see I'm hitting home on these subjects because it's close to my heart, because I see so many people out there, and too many people out there, dismissing farms outright. It's ridiculous. I've been doing a farm here, probably a quarter of a mile from where I'm sat, and it's had every detectorist on it under the sun. You know, the local shipyard here in Barrow, you know, there's been lads at that shipyard going on a Friday afternoon taking 5 or 6 of the mates on there detecting, and I've been detecting on it after they've been on and found hammered. You've got to walk over it. You've got to walk over I've never been dismissed. They're still producing bits and pieces of it. It's been absolutely hammered, but it still produces. You know, don't dismiss it. If you see people on that particular field, or you've seen people on that particular farm before and it puts you off, don't let it put you off. Unless they've been on it for decades and decades and had rallies on it and organised digs and whatever, then chances are the finds are going to be a little bit sparse. But don't let it put you off when you've seen 1 or 2 detectorists on a farm and you've already got permission on there, or you've gained permission on there later on. Don't let it put you off. That turn of that plough brings new stuff to the surface constantly. So, you know, it's a no-brainer. I hope that helps. I did speak last week about talking about the X factor in detecting, or the art of detecting, as I like to call it. I've not been able to fit that in this week. I've got a dozen or so questions here to bring up. I can't answer them all. You know, I'll have to fit that in another episode. But you know, I'd just like to say before I disappear off this video, thanks to you guys that have subscribed to this channel. I do hope you find it worthwhile watching. I know I waffle on a little bit, but I've got to say it as it is. Feel free to subscribe to us. We're going to grow this YouTube channel. Like I said in the earlier videos, I've never been a fan of YouTube, but it's getting the message across to people, and we're getting some really positive feedback. So I'm happy at that, and I hope you guys are happy at that. This isn't meant to upset anybody or get anybody's backs up. It's meant to give them solid advice on how to get the best out of the hobby. Feel free to keep asking the questions and dropping me messages and emails even I've had asking questions. I'll try to fit them in the next few episodes. Good luck out in the field this weekend, guys. I'll be out there for the first time in 2 weeks. I've had 2 weeks off. So keep an eye out for the finds if they come up, fingers crossed, on Facebook and social media. Happy days. Okay, see you next week.